Everything I've loved in this world, and even the curse that fell on me too.
Hello everybody, Infinite Shinjo here, and welcome back to a top 10 on my channel. And this time I am going to be ranking the Yu-Gi-Oh! Rival Ace monsters. Now, you might be wondering, how can you come up with 10 when there have only been 8 current shows? Well, that's because I'm counting multiple rivals for different shows. The characters in question that I'm going to be discussing here are Seto Kaiba from Duel Monsters, Chaz Princeton and Zane Truesdale from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, Jack Atlas from Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, Kite Tenjo and Shark Castle from Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal, Silvio Sawatari and Declan Akaba from Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5, Revolver from Yu-Gi-Oh! Reigns, and Roa Kirishima from Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s. Roa probably is an unpopular opinion to pick here since there's not an official rival in Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s, but I felt that given Roa's role in the early part of the show and the first roadblock that Yu-Gi-Oh! Had to encounter, it just made sense to include him. Now, there might be some misconception and confusion over what's considered an ace monster for each one of these characters, but I picked what I felt was the best ace monster for each one of these. So let's get started. Unfortunately, at the bottom of the list is Abyss Actor Superstar, owned by Silvio Sawatari. I'm not actually sure if this is his official ace, but that's the one that I associate with Silvio. Honestly, Silvio as a character in general is just kind of underwhelming, considering that he used multiple decks, multiple pretty interesting decks, and the Abyss Actors is what he went with, and throughout all changes of decks that he went with, he never won a single duel, and that's just unfortunate. Maybe if the Abyss Actors gave him an easy win, then it would be higher up. But just as a concept in general, I just never cared for the Abyss Actors. At number 9, we have DDD Flame King Genghis, used by Declan Akaba. Now this is the one that I wasn't sure about. Honestly, Declan was at the bottom of the list at first. But Declan as a character, I didn't know what his actual ace was, because in the early part of the show he utilized different summoning mechanics. So even though Flame King Genghis is here, you can take this for all of the DDD monsters because I never cared for them in general. Maybe if I use them I'd care more, but just the cards themselves and Declan as a character, I was just kind of neutral on throughout the whole show. And Arc 5 in general just doesn't typically leave a good taste in my mouth, which is probably why these two are at the bottom. Number 8 is Black Ray Lancer, and that pains me to say it, because from this point forward, it was hard for me to pick which monsters would go in which spot. And even though you could argue monsters like Submersible Carrier, Arrow Shark, or even Shark Drake would be a better fit for Shark's ace, I feel like this one is a more symbolic ace for him, because this is essentially the rank 3 equivalent of Leviathan Dragon after Yuma got Leviathan Dragon from Shark early on. This card has definitely helped Shark through a lot of tough duels, and even though you could argue other monsters for his ace, I think this one fits more in my opinion. And it's unfortunate that this is only 8th because I love Shark as a character and I love the cards that he uses, but I just love the other ones more. Number 7 is Royal Demon's Heavy Metal, used by Roa Kirishima. I didn't entirely plan for the 7th character to be in the 7th spot, it just kind of happened. Now Roa, I'm kind of bouncing back and forth talking about the character and the monster in general. But Roa as a character is kind of just there. He definitely had a presence early on in the show, and definitely did stuff in the later part of the show. But the middle part of the show, he was just kind of absent a lot of the time. And that certainly hurts his character. And as well, even though the Royal Demons cards are cool looking, they just weren't showcased enough for me to get fully invested in them. Although I love Roa calling out Heavy Metal's attack in the sub version. It's just absolutely amazing. And I love how his attack is just headbang. That is just absolutely perfect. At number 6 is Armed Dragon level 10, used by Chaz Princeton. Now, like a lot of other characters, you could argue other aces that Chaz used. He used the V to Z deck before. He primarily uses his Ojamas in the later part of the show. But when you compare all these big boss monsters and then you just have Ojama Yellow, it certainly takes you out of it. So I figured a big dragon reminiscent of Seto Kaiba fits for Chaz Princeton. And Armed Dragon level 10 is certainly a good boss monster. It's just that Chaz doesn't use it enough from what I remember. I know he used level 7 in the school duel with Jaden, but I can't recall very many times that he used level 10. Mainly because he uses his Ojamas to get him out of sticky situations a lot. But maybe if Chaz used Armed Dragon level 10 more, I would prefer it more. But it just seems like whenever I think of Chaz Princeton, my mind goes to level 7 instead of level 10. And that is not how it's supposed to work. At number 5, right in the middle of the list, is Borolo Dragon, used by Revolver. So, the Vrains show as a whole, I definitely have mixed feelings about it. You can check out my video if you want to know that. But Revolver is easily my favorite character of the show. A lot of the cards that he used I really like. And even though I'm not as keen on Link monsters in general, I do like Borolo Dragon. And I love the upgrades that he gets with his Fusion and Synchro counterparts. Even though, again, it is another 3000 attack point Dragon Ace, which is certainly overdone at this point, it still looks pretty cool. And even among the other monsters that were on this list, I just like the design sometimes, but I don't. So that's what put it right in the middle of the list. This is going to upset some people. At number 4 is Blue Eyes White Dragon, used by Seto Kaiba. Now, don't get me wrong, this is definitely an iconic monster, that is for sure. But the monster that is tied to, quite literally, Seto Kaiba, is kind of, in hindsight, not a good rival in a way to put it. Like, where you have other rivals like Declan, for example, to Yuya. He actually defeats Yuya and has him better himself and come back to eventually defeat him. Kaiba was basically one-sided. Kaiba legitimately won against Yugi one time, maybe? Actually, no, that wasn't even legitimate because Kaiba threatened to throw himself off the tower. So, you could argue that Kaiba never technically won against Yugi. Now, it would have been different if it was a thing where Kaiba defeated Yugi once or twice and made Yugi go back and think on his strategies, making Kaiba an actual threat. But back in the day, it was just normal to have the protagonist just be invincible all the time. And that carried through a lot of other shows. Blue Eyes is definitely an iconic monster, but when you compare it to a lot of other early Duel monsters, especially cards like Karibo, Summon Skull, Dark Magician Girl, I like other monsters more than Blue Eyes, and to be quite honest, I prefer Red Eyes to Blue Eyes, but it's still a very solid design. Even though in this artwork, he's technically not a white dragon, but, you know, they corrected it later, so it's okay. At number 3 is Cyber End Dragon, used by Zane Truesdale. Now, again, like other spots, you could argue that any of the Cyber Dark monsters would fit better for Zane, but this is the big monster that he had at the start of the show, so I feel like it's fitting to have that be his ace monster. And dude, Cyber End Dragon is just amazing. 4,000 attack points, not even counting if you use Power Bond to bring it out. It has piercing, and I love that it just has 3 heads because you use 3 separate Cyber Dragons to bring it out. It's just amazing. And it's a dragon without actually being a dragon because it's a machine. The fact that it was used to defeat Jaden in a very well animated scene, that definitely has an impact on it. But you know me, I like a lot of mechanicalized monsters, so it should be no surprise that Cyber End Dragon is up this far. Number 2 is Red Dragon Archfiend. Now, I did allude to this when I was talking about the protagonist ace monsters, that Red Dragon Archfiend would definitely be far up on the list. But looking back on it, it only is going to be a number 2. At least for now. My mind might change later, but it definitely helps that I love Jack Atlas as a character, and the upgrades to Red Dragon Archfiend are really cool as well. To be quite honest, I like a lot of the Signer dragons. The only one I'm not as keen on is probably Blackwing Dragon, but that's for personal reasons. But Red Dragon Archfiend's effect to just destroy everything else on the field, blows up a defense monster, is just a very powerful effect. And it makes sense given somebody like Jack Atlas uses this card, because it's just all raw power. And it just looks really menacing. The black and the red just work so well together. And it makes it a nice contrast to Stardust Dragon, where it's black and red versus white and blue. And number 1 is Galaxy Ice Photon Dragon, used by Kite Tenjo. I knew this was going to be up there, and realistically, me watching a lot of Zexal repeated is probably influencing this, but it's just a sick design. And it helps that a character like Kite actually defeats Yuma in duels, whereas other rivals don't actually defeat their protagonist or win sometimes, where Kite legitimately has an advantage over Yuma with this monster, because it can remove Utopia, take his overlay units, and get attack points from it. And it's super easy to bring out because it's a special summon, and all you need is 2 monsters with 2000 or higher attack. And I legitimately have a Galaxy Eyes deck, and I love using cards like this. My favorite thing to do, and I can't do this a lot of times because the cards just don't get in my hand at the right time, but I love using Polymerization, taking 2 Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon, fusing them for Twin Photon Lizard, and Twin Photon Lizard can use its effect, sacrifice itself, and bring back the materials from the graveyard. So turn 1, you could get 2 monsters with 3000 attack points on the field. That's a very situational move to pull off, but you could theoretically pull it off. And I love the space theme from it. That is definitely very prevalent in its design. I think I prefer this over the other forms like Neo Galaxy Eyes, just because I love the color blue, and it is just really majestic, really spectacular looking. And yeah, I could gush about it more, but I think you get the gist. So those are my top 10 rival ace monsters. Let me know what you think down in the comment section. If there's enough outcry for another video about this, I might do one focusing on the female characters. I might do one focusing on the sidekick characters like the Joeys, the Cyruses, stuff like that. But let me know what you think down in the comment section. Let me know your favorite rival ace monster. Let me know if you agree with my rankings or not, and I'll see you next time. Momentai.